Okay. Yeah, hi everybody. So pleased to see your faces and your names on the screen tonight. It looks like we have 59 participants, so even more than that if you're doubled up. So that's really exciting. Um, my name's Christian Meny. I'm the Director of Conservation at Montana Audubon. And welcome to our second annual Screech-Owl Citizen Science training. Um, we can't do this project without you. It's really, we had great attendance last year and we're hoping to do better this year. We turned up some screech owls around the state, which is really important. And the data that you collect is high quality data. It goes right into the Montana Natural Heritage Program website. And if you do use that Survey 123 app, which we recommend, it goes directly into that website. So that feeds into pretty much the premiered data set for the state of Montana in tracking wildlife, in my opinion. So, um, yeah, I'm very pleased to see you all. Um, it's so great to, this is such a great way to engage with our natural world, and especially in March when you get a little cooped up, little cabin fever to get out there. And last year I went out and did a few surveys myself and turned up a bunch of northern saw-whet owls, which I wasn't expecting, and heard some mountain lions vocalizing. And so you never know what you're going to find out there. But it sure is exciting to get out there and do some surveying. And so without further ado, I will introduce Gwyn Rohde. This is our second term with Montana Audubon as our AmeriCorps, and she is doing a fantastic job facilitating all of our citizen science programs and helping me with our conservation ranching program and doing so many things uh, for Montana Audubon and for wildlife in the state of Montana. And so I'm going to see if she'll stick around here going forward. But tonight she'll be running the training, and she'll just run you through some slides and try to, the idea to sign up for some transects. So those are basically survey routes, and learn the protocol. So what you do out there, which includes listening and taking some data and possibly playing some call playback using a phone or another device, and trying to find some screech owls among other things. So yeah, without further ado, here is Gwyn Rohde.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming to our second annual Citizen Science Survey training for Western and Eastern Screech-Owls in Montana. These two species are both potential species of concern, and Western Screech-Owls are also a species of greatest inventory need, which is why it's so important that we're focusing on these owls to go out and survey them this year. And potential species of concern basically means that we don't have the data part of the potential, and we have a lack of data on where these owls are and how many of them there are. And then the concern part comes from the declining habitat. So both Western and Eastern screech owls depend on riparian habitat and old growth trees. And then species of greatest inventory need of Western screech owls basically puts it at the top priority of species that we are lacking data of. So then that puts them at more of a conservation need of we need to go out and find data and like observe these owls and write down where they're at. And so with that, before we actually go out and survey for these owls, we're going to go over this training and learn how to survey them. And with that, we're going to do a quick species background on both of them, how to identify them and differentiate between the two of them, how to navigate all the websites and survey materials that I've been emailing all of you guys about, and then also data collection and the protocol of the survey itself. And then at the end, there'll be time for questions. So before we start, Christian mentioned that I'm an AmeriCorps member. So I am a Big Sky Watershed Corps member amongst all these four groups listed on this screen. And I
Hey,
am a second.
Glenn, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is Lauren. There's a box in the middle of our view that says audience window on it. and it's kind of blocking the view of the slide.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you.
Good job.
Okay, can everyone see my screen all right now?
Yeah.
Yes, it looks great now. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So I'm a Big Sky Watershed Corps member, and this basically means that I am placed with the host site, and there are about 40 others around the state, and a few of them are even in this call right now. And within that host site, I try to focus on watershed-related issues. And with birds, you'd kind of think like, what's the relationship with that? And protecting and conserving birds also means that conserving the habitats and watersheds that they rely on. So yeah, and then all of the survey materials that I'll be covering will also be available on our citizen science website at the link above. And then I'll also send out a training link of the recorded version of this video in case you ever need to go back and reference anything. And my email is always open in case you come up with any questions. So starting off with a background on Western Screech-Owls, this is our first target species. This is the potential species of concern and also the species of greatest inventory need. Both Screech-Owl species are part of the Strigidae family, or the true owls, and there are about 230 species in this family, and within that, they're in the genera or genus of the megascops, and breaking that down into the Latin roots, mega means large, and then scops means an owl, which is kind of ironic considering how small these owls actually are. Screech owls are only about 7 to 10 inches, and then their wingspan's about 18 to 24 inches. So the genus of megascops contains all 24 screech owl species between North and South America. And then the second part of their scientific name, Kennecotti, comes from the famous naturalist Robert Kennicott. And this may be misleading, but Robert Kennicott wasn't actually the first person to discover Western Screech-Owl. He was just named that after the ornithologist that did discover him, which was Gerard Elliott, who in 1867, who was the first to record a Western Screech-Owl. And then despite the common name of screech, these owls rarely make any screeching sounds. And then with the Western Screech-Owl, their most common sound kind of sounds like dropping a ping pong ball really fast. And then they also do like a typical hoot as well. So next up is the Eastern Screech-Owl, and they are also in the Strigidae family and Megascops genus, but their species name is ACO, which translates from Latin to a horned owl, which refers to the owl's ear tufts, which aren't pictured very well in this photo, but in the other photos you could see. And these ear tufts actually have no relation to their hearing. They are just meant for daytime camouflage. So both of these species nest in natural cavities in old growth trees. So they try to blend in with the bark of the trees, which is why they're mainly gray and brown, and they have the black bars on their chest to look like bark and mimic that. And then the ear tufts blend in more to the trees. So their actual ears are located around their facial disc of kind of like the sphere around their face. And they're located asymmetrically. So then one ear is located higher up on their facial disc than the other. And that's so when they're hunting at night, they're able to locate where the sound's at and then swoop down and catch their prey at more accurately than if like our ears, which are located on the same place on our heads. And then these owls are opportunistic hunters, so they'll just sit on a branch and wait along until they hear or see something come by, and then they'll swoop down and grab it. And when they swoop down, they actually don't make any noise when they fly, and this is just the fringes within their feathers have gaps of air, so then when they fly, it breaks up all the airflow. So then, just like other owls, these are able to fly silently. And then usually when they're hunting, they have a pretty diverse diet. So they'll mainly eat rodents, insects, frogs, and other small critters. And yeah, Eastern screech owls are generally more reddish brown, especially in the more eastern parts of the United States and then the Southwest United States. And Western screech owls are more gray. So going in between the differences between the two, these owls are nearly identical, so it's pretty hard to differentiate between the two if you're just looking at them. Thankfully for this survey, it's mainly going to be a audio, so you're going to be way more likely to hear the owls than actually see them, especially with this survey being at night. So the main difference between the two is their vocalizations. The Western Screech-Owls are an accelerating series of hoots, which kind of sound like a ping pong ball. And then the Eastern Screech-Owl is like a descending whine sound. And then besides that, their physical differences are Western Screech-Owls have like a darker beak. So their beak in this photo you could see is a lot more black and gray. And then Eastern Screech-Owls' beaks are like greenish, yellowish. And then with Westerns, their gray and brown morphs are more likely than, say, Easterns, which have more like reddish tints and brownish tints. And then another difference between the two is that Westerns have like narrower bars on their breast. And you could see here they have like these streaks along their breast. So Westerns, they're closer together, and then Easterns are a little bit more spaced apart. So within their ranges, both screech owls have similar habitats and primarily reside in riparian floodplains, cottonwood forests, and conifer forests. And then they also like old growth trees with natural cavities, and they depend on these trees for nesting. So this is kind of what it looks like when they're in these cavities. You can see that they're very well camouflaged, and even if they were closer to the ground, they'd still be hard to spot if you weren't looking too closely. And then another cool thing is that screech owls, although they depend on natural cavities and old growth trees, which is the concern about their declining habitat, they've also been known to pick up using nesting boxes in suburban neighborhoods. So going into their range, which is one of their biggest differences, especially here in Montana, where their range is kind of cut along the line of the Rocky Mountains and around the Great Falls area. So this is the full range of the Western screech owl. You could see that it kind of cuts across down Great Falls and the western part of the United States. And all of these, well, both species are non-migratory like most owls. And it's indicated in the name, Western screech owl. So then going into what eBird observations of Western screech owls in Montana. I know a lot of people on here are familiar with eBird, but in case you're not, it's a great app to download. It basically is a citizen science driven app where birders can track the birds that they see at the specific location that they see it at. And then all of this information is public access. So you could go in and look at who saw what bird where. And this allows for more data-driven approach to conservation as well. And it lets people get involved into it. So in this, you could see that Western screech owls go as far east as Great Falls and Bozeman in some areas. And then both species have converging ranges along the Missouri River in some parts of the state. So this is the full range of an Eastern screech owl. And this species resides mainly along the eastern and central U.S. with territories in about the eastern half of Montana. And then here's the Eastern screech owl observations from eBird in Montana. They've been so far west as like near Flathead National Forest and past Great Falls, which is another reason why we're putting both species into the same playback call, because you never know what you'll find. Even if you're from like Missoula, you may get an odd Eastern screech owl out of nowhere. And if it's confirmed, then that's a great sighting and great information for the state to have. So here's where you all come in. So citizen science is a great tool for conservationists and biologists to use because we're so we're limited by the amount of biologists that we have, and people get to learn more about these species and get to go out and observe these owls when they'd be so difficult for usually and to just come across randomly. And last year was a great example. So we were able to locate 42 owls across 6 different species. And in that we observed 8 different screech owls. And then, although this survey focuses on screech owls, you may come across other owl species during this survey, which can be very cool as well. I think we even had someone observe a boreal owl And then along with that, people observe like mountain lions, moose during these surveys, which is also pretty cool. So before that, the last survey took place in 2014, and 12 species of Montana owls were listed on the highest inventory need list. And presently only 4 owl species remain, which is really great. So yeah, for these 2 species, the increase in infrastructure in the last decade and lack of recent surveys make them really valuable to learn more about the population and locations of these birds. So we're able to assess more in depth about their conservation needs and statuses. And then citizen science is extremely valuable in this place because there's people all across the state that are being involved in this. And say Montana Audubon itself would never be able to go out to like Havre and Glasgow or Billings to go out and do these surveys. So doing them in everyone's backyard is really cool. So this survey window follows the breeding and nesting season for Eastern and Western Screech-Owls in Montana, which is March 1st to April 30th. So the reason why we do it during their breeding and nesting season is that's when their heightened vocal activity is. So we use a playback call during the survey, which is basically just a recording of each of their calls. So there'll be 20 seconds of like an Eastern Screech-Owl's descending whine, and then 20 seconds of a Western Screech-Owl's trill. And then that kind of inhibits any nearby owls to respond to that call. And so during that playback call, there'll be periods of silence in which you'll listen for the owls. And then that's the way that we are more likely to observe any and listen for any of these owls compared to like if you were just passive listening and having like a random chance of hearing them. So the reason why they're more vocal in their breeding season is because they're more likely to respond to another owl that they think is a potential mate, or if they need to defend their territory, then they would call back to defend their territory. So getting into the protocol, so before you survey, sorry about that. Okay, so before you survey, everyone here filled out an interest form, and a lot of people have already claimed their sites. So kudos to anyone working ahead. I know a lot of the sites in any of the big cities were really fast to go, and a lot of people kind of had to go out into kind of the outskirts of towns and into the smaller towns to go survey, which I really appreciate anyone going out of their way to go do the survey and get involved. And then after you fill out your interest form and site claim form, I'll email you back and confirm what site that you have. And I try to check these every day. So if you don't hear from me, just check in after a while, but I'll try to go back and check. So every site this year has a recommended route or a set of coordinates. And I only put a set of coordinates in for the route if past volunteers have done that route and they didn't have any bad thing to say about any of the sites that they visited. Like if there was like a loud river or a lot of traffic. I only put those coordinates in for specific routes just because I didn't want to put coordinates in that no one's been to and it wouldn't be safe for someone to park at. So this year we have a packet of recommended roads to visit, and I base that off of how much traffic is expected there, and then also what the habitat around that is, just so then you have the best chance of observing one of these owls. And then before going out to survey, you want to make sure to establish which route you are taking, and then try to have like a general starting point of where you want to go. And then just a safety thing of just tell someone where you're going and what time you should expect to be back. And this survey, within this survey window of March 1st to April 30th, you only need to go out and survey one time within your QLL. So you could do it anytime between March 1st and April 30th. And this survey should take about 2 hours, not counting the drive to and from your starting and ending point. And then before you go out and survey, it's best to make sure that you have all your materials together, like having the playback call downloaded, having survey 123 downloaded, or printing out the paper data sheet. And then to also check the weather, because if the weather's bad, then you're going to have less of a likely chance of observing any of these owls. And then also reviewing the screech owl sounds, and then identification, and then any other owl identification too. Because although we're targeting Western and Eastern Screech-Owls, if you hear any other owls, then that's still valuable information. But say you hear like a Wilson snipe or any other like songbirds, or shorebirds, then that'd be good to put into eBird, but you don't necessarily need to put it in your data sheet or survey 123. So for the materials that you'll need
Excuse
for
me?
this, hello?
Sorry.
Yeah.
How do you pronounce your first name?
Gwen.
Gwen. Okay. I thought I had it right. I know you mentioned just one visit during that time frame. Is there any benefit to going more than that, or is there a detraction to going more than once for you guys?
It depends on what site. If you're unsure about your observations, then it might not hurt to do a second visit. But we also don't want to do this multiple visits during the same route in case like you hear an owl one time. So a playback call kind of stresses birds out, or it could, because they're like calling to a potential mate or defending their territory. So we don't want to like over playback call them and stress them out too much. So yeah, it's kind of up to you, but yeah,
Okay.
it's only one required.
Okay.
Okay, so the materials needed for the survey, a smartphone is generally the most useful, but if you don't have a smartphone, you could still make do. So you'll need a GPS or something to track your coordinates, a thermometer, which you could use from a smartphone, and then a device to play the playback call. So you could download it to your phone, or if you have any recording device that you could play, and then a compass to just generally track that in your data sheet. And then the playback call is on our webpage. I'll show how to navigate that near the end of the survey. And then that can be found on our website. And then recommended printed data sheets as a backup in case survey 123 doesn't work. And then also a speaker for playback calls at sites with noise pollution. So that basically means last year we had a few issues with people going to sites. And since these owls live in riparian areas, sometimes there'll be a river running through and it can be a little loud. So a playback call speaker would be good, but you don't want to play it too loud just to not stress the owls out too much. So just loud enough to hear from like an eighth of a mile or so. And then weather, please do not survey in snowy, rainy, or windy conditions. This is both for your own safety because it's nighttime. You might be in an area that you haven't been before out on country roads. And then also it'd be less likely to hear an owl if you're out there and it's like pouring down rain or really windy. They might not be calling. And then for wind, in the protocol, it pretty much says over 8 miles an hour, which is like small branches are in motion, is too harsh of wind for this survey. So once you get to every specific site, so there are 10 stops in the survey a mile apart. They don't all have to be exactly a mile apart, just at least a mile apart. So then you're not detecting the same owls at different sites. But mainly you just want to park at a safe spot. So you don't want to park in the middle of the road or in someone's driveway. You just like a pull off is fine unless otherwise listed. But so you want to do 10 stops a mile apart and the starting point's chosen by you, but there is that packet that has the recommended roads for each site. But if you know the area better than I do, then go for it if you think that there's a better route. But these surveys can be done anytime from 30 minutes after sunset to 30 minutes before sunrise. That's just the most active time that these owls are out. And yeah, the survey should only take about 2 hours, so you won't be out there all night. And then all of these stops have to be on public land. We can't do any surveys or collect any data on tribal land or private property. So roadside pullouts are fine. You just don't want to be on someone's like private property surveying without their permission. And then within each site, you'll need to park your car and then exit your vehicle at a safe place, of course. And then once outside, you don't need to wander out too far. You could just stand next to your car. And then you want to record your latitude and longitude when you get to the site. And then you'll play the owl playback call recording, and it starts out with a period of silence. So if you press the play button and you don't hear anything, it's probably working. That's just like passive listening before any of the recording starts. And so then from the time that you start the recording to the time that it ends, that's pretty much the observation window. So you don't need to like have a timer or anything. The recording playing will just keep track for you. And then only play the recording once per site. And if you're just using your smartphone, you could do it at full volume. And then if you're using a speaker, just do it at like an appropriate noise level. You don't want to like have your speaker on full blast, because that could really stress out the owls. And then optionally, if you think that you would be able to see, if you hear an owl and then you think that you would be able to see it, you could use like a phone flashlight or a spotlight to spotlight any potential owls. And yeah, going to recording observations. In this survey, you are way more likely to hear the owls than actually see them. I think there were only like 1 or 2 cases last year out of like 58 volunteers that you were able to actually see the owls. And then to prepare for the survey, since it's a auditory survey mainly, it's best to listen to screech owls, which the vocalizations can be found on our webpage. But Xenocanto is a really useful site to go listen to different sounds and recordings of what these owls sound like. And then Merlin's also useful to help ID the bird sounds if you're unsure, but sometimes it can be unreliable. And then also if the bird's far away, then it might not pick it up. So you just want to be prepared on what owls you might hear out there. And then, yeah, last year we heard more than one species or more than just screech owls. I think there were 6 species that they heard. So you'll never know what you'll hear out there. So just study up on your owl noises, which could be a fun activity if you like bird identification. So the playback call itself, when you start the recording, there's going to be 3 minutes of silence. And then there's going to be 20 seconds of Eastern Screech-Owl call of that, like the descending whine. And then following the 20 seconds, there's going to be another minute of silence for passive listening. And during the silence, you just want to be listening for any nearby owls. And then after that, there's going to be 20 seconds of a Western Screech-Owl's call, and then which is like a bouncy trill, and then another 4.5 minutes of silence, and then the recording's over. So during that, you won't need to you won't need to set a timer or anything. And we only use 20 seconds of calls for each species just to not stress any birds out. So going to callback ethics, pretty much we just want to be respectful to the natural environment and all the species around. So the pros of going out and using this playback call is that we would be able to target a specific species, like in this case, the screech owls, and it's less physically invasive than going into their habitat and looking for them. And then it attracts hard to survey birds. So screech owls are pretty hard to survey. They're data deficient and not a lot of people get to hear them or see them. So the playback call makes it so that they're more likely to observe any that are nearby. And then some cons of it is that they can, like aggressive playback can make any social standing birds look bad. So like, say there's a pair of screech owls and then someone has their speaker on full blast and they're just repeating a playback call. And then one of the owls can kind of look like they're defending their territory and losing, which can lower their social standing amongst other owls. And then it causes unnatural stress on birds. And then any other birders, which in this case, there might not be many other birders around you at the time that you're looking for them, but it can interrupt any other birders. And then some people think that playback calls is cheating. In this case, it is for a survey. So people can have their own opinions on it. And then another pro is that I think it was a case of chickadees, one of the birds was able to look like they beat the playback call. And so then they got a higher social standing, which this is just kind of like an interesting rabbit hole to dive down if you want to look more into it. Some takeaways of it is that more research needs to be done about the effects of playback calls and to just be respectful about it. Don't overplay playback calls or play at a really high volume. And going into the actual survey sites, if you saw this map, it can look a little confusing, but we split up the regions into 7 different ones. Basically, these regions were made by Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and it's just an overlay on top of the way that these sites are split up, which they're called QLLs or quarter lat longs. And it's pretty much just like a grid over the state, and then every site is a different grid. And then here's all the roadways in the red. And there's also, if you see some of the red and green, that's the habitat suitability of it. So here's another map of all the roadways. You can kind of see the cities. It's kind of hard to get the cities to pop up in the QLL map, which is why all of the sites have different towns listed in them. And then another important thing about the survey is that we're not able to collect any data on tribal or private lands. So if you're looking to do a survey on like a reservation, if I went through and looked at all the QLLs, and if it looked like there were no suitable routes within that QLL that were in the reservation, then I just took it off the list. So if you're looking through the list and noticing that you want to survey an area that's not on there, that's probably why. So going into every individual map, this is what the actual map looks like. So the green and red in the corner where the site name is, in this case, it's 27D. So there's the moderate suitability in red and then the optimal suitability in green. And the optimal suitability is like the best habitat that can be like, that's great riparian area, like old growth cottonwood trees. That's where that's the highest chance that you'll see a screech owl. And then red is good habitat as well. So there's these unmarked roadways on it. So that's where the recommended routes come in, just so then you don't have to search through Google Maps too much to look through. But yeah, so in this case, there's Boulder and Basin, and you could just go to that town in Google Maps if you want to look through for different routes, and then just compare the two roadways and see. So this is what the route map guide looks like. There's a big button to press underneath the site claim form on our Screech-Owl webpage to access this. And it pretty much has every different site and then the recommended route that you could take for it. And then for the sites that people did last year that were successful, they have route packets. And with that, there's recommended coordinates. And then there's notes about what that location is. And then these are all also optional for the route. You don't have to do the recommended coordinates if you don't want to. And then with that, you could use My Maps, which when you press the link at the top of it, then it redirects you to this, and you could open that in Google Maps, and then it'll take you to those coordinates where those red bird landmarks are for each site. So I'll go more into the actual like how to navigate our survey sites webpage near the end of this presentation. But going into the data collection, we recommend using Survey 123. With this, this is an app that goes, and when you collect the data and submit it, it goes directly to the state database of Montana Natural Heritage Program. And then we get all that data back in like August or so. So if you want to know any like reports or anything, you can expect to see everything that everyone collected like this fall. So for Survey 123, how to download it is you could go to Survey 123 for ArcGIS in App Store or Google Play, or if you have an Android smart device or iPhone. And then once you downloaded it, you will not need to sign it at all. You could just skip that. There's a little button below the sign in that just says to skip it. And then after that, you can go on your phone and go to our webpage. And then there's, okay, sorry about that. So after that, you can go to our webpage, and then there's a download the survey from our webpage button on our Survey 123 webpage. And then that will redirect you and take you to the app. And then that survey will show up in the app. So this picture, the nocturnal calling surveys 2.1, that's what will show up when you click that web link. So for actually collecting the data, you're going to have 10 form submissions in total. So for every stop, you're going to need to fill out a new form and submit it. And then for the survey protocol, you're going to want to put winter breeding owls. And then survey type, if you use a playback, which the survey does, then you'll just put call playback for the survey type. And then one important thing is to, when you get to your actual stop, you want to press that pin or put in your latitude and longitude. It's important not to put that in after you leave the site, because it'll just record whatever location that you're at when you press that button.
Gwen,
Yeah.
I'm guessing some folks will be in areas without cell phone connectivity.
Yes. So you can either save that to your outbox or which then you could upload when you get into Wi-Fi. Or another thing is that we have this paper data sheet, which is always reliable in case you want to use that. So that's also on our website and you could just print that out. It has every stop on it already, so you just need to print it out one time. And then with that, you just fill it out like any other paper data sheet, and it has every question on it. And then after that, you could just take pictures of your data sheets and then email it to me. Or if you'd like to do some extra work, you could always go to Survey123 on your computer and then type in all your data and submit it that way too. So some notes on recording data. If you're recording your latitude and longitude on a paper data sheet, please put it in decimal degrees. This just saves me a lot of time when entering the data because that's how they submit it for the state database. And then it's always useful to record more than you think is necessary. So like any habitat notes are useful for like future reference on any land use changes. So say that you go and survey one year and it's this this nice pristine wetland, and then you go back the next year and there's construction on it. That's useful for us to know. And then if you have any trouble with Survey123, please feel free to email me. There's been some issues in the past with questions not popping up. And then when you try to submit it, it just says an error. So I can always help out with that if you have any trouble. And then next up, a lot of you have done this already, but the citizen science waiver. This can be found on our website under forms and contact. And you could either print it out, sign it, and then take a picture and email it to me. Or if you know how to use like the Paint app, you could draw your signature on there. And then you can just email it to me. Or you can snail mail it. I just might bug you about it more during the survey window if I don't get it by then. And yeah, so going into survey tips and safety. Above everything, we want you guys to be safe when you go out and survey. So staying on public and easily accessible land. And then if possible, if you're pretty eager about it, you can drive along your planned route during the daytime, just so then you see where you're going in the daytime and not just going out and blind in the nighttime. And you could use this in your QOL map to plan good stops. And then, as always, tell someone where and when you're going, and then when you plan on returning. And then also ensuring that you have all your proper gear and your playback and audio recordings are all set and your GPS coordinates all set, and like having a full phone battery and just having everything that you need for the survey and dressing warm. And then always be aware of the traffic around you and the wildlife around you. And don't stop in the middle of roadways to conduct these surveys, even if it's like a like unbusy country road. We just don't want anyone stopping and then getting into wrecks or getting stuck or anything. So now I'm going to be navigating the Screech-Owl webpage just to show everyone where everything is in case there were any questions about it.
And is that survey link something that we got emailed, or is it just here that I'm maybe seeing it for the first time?
Which survey link?
The one you got up on your screen?
Oh, the
And the
webpage?
bird. Yeah, the webpage, sorry.
Yeah, it was in the other one, but I can send it to you again if you'd like.
Oh, that's all right. I'll just write it down.
It's in the chat now as well.
Sweet.
Okay, so when you click that link, this is the page that pops up. This shows all of our citizen science projects, which I'll go over a few of them at the end of the presentation. But for this one, you can just double click on the Screech-Owl surveys and it'll take you to this. And this is just a brief intro on what the survey is, the survey interest form, which all of you signed or filled out. And then this just has an about, which will take you to this guide for it, which has like some information on their range and habitat. And then Western versus Eastern Screech-Owls for differentiating between the two, which was on one of the earlier slides. And then here's the volunteer form, and then the survey resources, which has pretty much everything else for the survey. So if you click this, this will take you to the protocol. And then there's the training link, which this has all the training information, and this is where the recording will be posted. And then below that, there's the paper data sheet if you want to download it, a survey 123, which I'll just go into this really quick. This has steps for downloading it, a guide for it below, and then this takes you to the survey button itself. So if you're downloading survey 123 on your phone, and then you want to get that specific survey into your app, then you would just need to go to this web page and then click on that button, and that'll take you to the app and it'll be there. And then this button, you can download survey 123, the actual app. So then going back, this button downloads the playback call. So if you press that, and then you could save that into your phone. And then here's the survey sites webpage. As you can see, a lot of these sites are claimed already, which is amazing. We had nowhere near this amount of participation last year. And also, sorry that everyone, I feel like a lot of people are going out of their way to do surveys in different parts of the state that they haven't been, which is an exciting adventure, but no, it can be a lot of driving. So I hope that you guys get to get out and observe some owls. But here's the main map. Here's the route guide, and then the claim site form. Or if you see a site, you could also just email it to me, your site that you'd like, and I'll put it down.
Could you scroll down? I had forwarded the link to a friend and he was wondering if Fort Benton was still available.
Yes. Do you know what region that will
North
be in?
Central it might have been in.
Yeah, it's still available. That's 18A.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, so these asterisks in black just indicate that the site's already claimed. And yeah, and then this is a map of all the tribal lands. So any QLLs that fall into that don't have any suitable routes outside of tribal land, I took off the options. And then yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the web page. So going back into the presentation. Sorry, you guys have that black box that's blocking the view again. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, there we go. So you can email me anytime about how your survey goes. I'd love to hear if you heard any owls or if you encountered anything cool like a moose or heard any mountain lions. And then if you also run into any safety concerns or any spots that you went or coordinates that you surveyed at that say like there was a barking dog or anything, just it'd be nice to let me know about that just so then I can make a note of it for future years. And yeah, so going over our upcoming citizen science projects. This is about the 16th or 17th year of our long-billed curlew surveys, and those will be happening in the Mission and Helena valleys, and that will be happening later in April and May, but the training's going to be late March. And then new this year is the common porwheel and common nighthawk surveys, and this will be statewide in the summertime from early May to mid-July. And you could always email me for more information about either of those two. There'll be more information coming out on our website about the common porwheel and common nighthawk surveys coming soon too. And now is any questions?
Hey, Gwen, we have a question. Is it recommended to do these solo or can we bring other people to help?
You are more than welcome to bring other people to help if you'd like. I just ask that they also submit a volunteer form just so then I could have that on record.
If if I'm bringing my daughter, I'm happy to fill out a form for her 5 years old, just to have her information on file. Is that all right?
Yeah, or you could put their name on your form too as well. That works.
Okay, I can add her info in there. Great.
Okay.
We had a question about the app. Has the app been updated since 2024?
I have not heard anything about the app being updated. But yeah, I could always double check and get back to you on that too.
I have a question about sites then. If there's a site that isn't on the map that we feel like might be worth checking, it needs to be in the quadrant that we have signed up for. You wouldn't want to check a site in a different QLL.
Yeah, so that's just so then in case another person has that QLL and then they go survey the same site, we don't want to have two different observations in the same place from two different people. So yeah, if you do see a place that you want to survey and that site isn't claimed, then you could always just email me about it and I can write you down for that one too.
Gwen, I have a question about the long-billed curlew surveys. Are they not happening in the Ovando-Helmville area this year?
I am still in progress of talking to the Blackfoot Challenge about that. It sounds like this year that they'll be more in charge of it, so I can send you the contact for the coordinator for the Blackfoot sites in the valley too.
Okay, thank you. And then I have a second question. Is it possible in the fall when you have pulled all this data together that you have another Zoom meeting for maybe 30 minutes so that everyone can hear what each other or what was found?
Yeah, that's a great idea. We haven't really considered doing like a presentation about the results before, but we do write reports about them, and then I send that out to all the volunteers at the end of the year.
It might be fun for everybody to hear what you know.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Gwen, I had a question about the QLL maps. It's pretty hard to tell on those maps, like where your little quadrant ends and someone else's starts. Is there a way to get more detail on that?
Yeah, so those maps come to us from the state, and we can't really alter them very well. So my best advice would to be like a split screen on your computer, and then to have the QLL in one side of it, and then like Google Maps in the other side, and just comparing the roadways that you see.
Yeah, I've done that. So,
Does
all right,
it
just wondered
Gwen,
if something's easier.
do those quadrants match up to the gazetteer at all? Like with the numbers, same as the Montana gazetteer?
I have not checked, but I
Okay.
can get back to you on that.
That could be another way for somebody just to, I know it's another $20 to buy, but those are super detailed maps and have all the access roads and, pretty readily readable key of, is this a 2-lane dirt road, or am I going to be on a gravel road, or am I going to be on a paved road? So I guess that's another option to pursue.
Nice.
The gazetteer doesn't have the lat along numbers, but it does show the 30-minute ticks, so you can easily figure out sort of where the corners are. I marked mine up years ago just with a highlighter to show where the different lines intersect.
Nice.
Gwen, can I ask you a question about the app?
Yeah.
So whoops, you probably can't see that. I've downloaded the app and not signing in as you suggested. But then when I go to download surveys, it takes me right to the Esri sign in and requires me to sign in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Would you be able to send me your email so then I could look more into it and then get back to you on that? Because
Sure.
I'm not really sure why it's doing that.
Yeah, I thought that was strange. Okay. All right. Thanks, Gwen.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does look like there's a question in the chat about a request of us recording of the owls for their response, or is it just us are you relying on us to identify the species and not recording an owl if we hear one?
Yeah, so you don't have to record any of the owls that you hear. We are kind of trusting you guys to know which owl is which. And so that's kind of like the studying beforehand part of it. But if you do think that you can hear them loud enough to get a good recording of it, that's always useful for like eBird and the survey.
Gwen, I sent an interest form in, but I don't know, will I get an email from you if I've been designated to do those particular lat along blocks?
Yes, so I will look at the different sites that are available or the ones that you put the priorities in, and I'll try to give you the highest priority site that you put in. But I'll email you when I get your form.
Right,
So
thanks.
you should expect an email about like 9:30-ish tomorrow about it.
All right.
And Gwen, as I understand it, if we did these surveys last year, then we were automatically assigned this year to the areas that we did last year.
Not necessarily. I know that you wanted to do the same survey site, so I put you down for the one that you did last year.
Okay.
Just because you emailed me about it. But yeah,
Okay.
I know that you had some good observations last year too, Bob. So
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
no problem. And then John, do you have a question?
Yeah, so I was looking at the site map and you have 2 recommended routes, but looking on Google Maps, I'm not sure that I can get 9 miles out of one route to get the 10 sites. Can I split the survey up between the 2 different routes?
Yeah, for sure. As long as all the sites are a mile apart, then that's completely welcome. They don't necessarily have to be like exactly a mile apart. They just need to be at least a mile. So you could do different routes within the same QLL if you think it'd be best.
Perfect. Thank you.
My question is that on the app, this is my first year, but is it the ArcGIS Survey 123 or?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, that's the right one.
okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any more questions? Alrighty, well, if not, thank you all for listening and attending tonight. I'll be emailing out some resources tomorrow and then the recording of this training in case you want to go back and reference anything. And then my email is always open if you have any questions or comments about this survey or have any recommendations to improve it. So thank you guys. Hope that you guys get to observe some screech owls this year.
Yeah. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank
for
you.
coming. And
Yeah.
if you are nocturnally minded,
Ronnie,
I'm going to put in a plug again for
There's
those nightjar
question.
surveys this season. We're working with Fish, Wildlife, and Parks to fill in some of their places, geographies where they didn't get a lot of data on common poorwill. And so, yeah, just a quick plug on that. But yeah, so glad to have everybody out tonight. Thanks so much, Gwen. And
Thank you all.
we're very excited to see what you come up with.